Welcome once again to the weekly Sunday Pūjā in Unison and Sunday Online, an initiative of 𝓟𝓷𝓷 Buddhist Council of Malaysia and is hosted by MSBS and DBV. It's certainly good to see all of you once again on this online platform. Today is the 5th of November 2023. So to begin today's puja, I shall now invite Sister Doris to read out the offerings in English. Over to you, Sister Doris.
Thank you, Brother Terence. A very good morning to all brothers and sisters in the Dhamma. Let us calm our minds and reflect on the meaning of the virtual offerings that we shall make with full respect to our blessed teacher, the Buddha. Let us begin with offerings of lights. May we offer these candles burning brightly out of deep respect and veneration to our enlightened master, the Buddha. May these lights symbolically guide us to the light of the Dhamma, which dispels the darkness of greed with the light of generosity, the gloominess of hatred with the light of love, and the darkness of ignorance with the light of wisdom through the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Offering of joss sticks and incense. May we offer these joss sticks and incense out of deep respect and veneration to our blessed master, the Buddha. May the fragrance of these joss sticks and incense be pleasing unto the gods and devas. May our good deeds be like the fragrance of these joss sticks, cultivating compassion, patience, tolerance, understanding, and love towards all living beings. Offering of water. May we offer this water to symbolize our aspiration to cultivate the virtues of calmness, clarity, and purity. Let it remind us to diligently cleanse ourselves of our spiritual defilements and delusion through the cultivation of generosity, compassion, and wisdom. Offering of flowers. These flowers too we offer out of deep respect and gratitude to our compassionate master, the Buddha. These flowers, sweet, beautiful, and choice, are clustered at the feet of our noble master. Beautiful as they are now, they will soon, with passing of time, wilt and fade and be cast away. Reflecting thus on this very nature of unsatisfactoriness, impermanence, and soullessness, let us tread the path shown by the Buddha for the removal of sufferings here and now. So let us start today's puja chanting by giving salutation to the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha by saying sadhu 3 times. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami. Dhammang saranang gacchami. Sanghang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Panati pata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Adinnādāna veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Kāmesu micchāchāra veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Musavada Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. Surameraya Majjapamadatthana Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. Itipiso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vijja Charana Sampanno Sugato Lokavidu Anuttaro Purisa Dhammasarati Sattha Deva Manussanang Buddho Bhagavati Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Sandittiko Akaliko Ehipassiko Opanayiko Paccatang Veditabbo Vinyuhiti Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Ujupatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Nyaya Patipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Samici Patipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Yadidang Chattari Purisa Yugani Atta Purisa Puggala Esa Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Ahuneyo Pahuneyo Dakkineyo Anjalikaraniyo Anuttarang Punyakhetang Lokasati.
Vandami cetiyang sabban sabbatane supatititang saririkadatu mahaboding buddha rupang sakalang sada yasamule nisinnova sabbari vijayang aka patto Banyutan satta vandetang bodhipadapang ime ete mahabodhi lokanate na pujita ahang pite namasami bodhiraja namattute ganasarapaditena Dipena tamadang sina tilo kadipang sambuddang pujayami tamonudang ganda sambarayuttena dupena hang sugandina pujaye pujaniyantang puja bhajana muttamang Ativase tuno bante paniyang parikapitang anukampang upadaya patigan hatumuttamang adivase tuno bante bojanang parikapitang anukampang upadaya patigan hatumuttamang adevase tuno bante gilana paccayang imang anukampang upadaya patigan hatumuttamang vandaganda guno petang etang kusuma santating Pujayami munindassa siripada saroruhe Pujemi buddhang kusumena nena punyena metena cahotu mokkang pang milayati yatha idang me kayo tatha yati vinasa bhavang akasatta ca bummatta devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva cirang rakhantu loka sasanang akasatta ca bummatta devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva cirang rakhantu desanang akasatta ca bummatta devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva cirang rakhantu man parangti devo vassatu kalena sassa sampatti hetuca pito bhavatu lokoca raja bhavatu dhammiko idang me nyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo idang me nyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo idang me nyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo imina punya kammena mame bala samagamo satang samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattiya kayena vaca cittena pamadena maya katang accayang kamame bante buri panya tathagata kayena vaca cittena pamadena maya katang accayang kamame dhamma santittika akalika kayena vaca cittena pamadena maya katang accayang kamame sangga supatipanna anuttara
Araniyamatta kusalena yantang santang padang abisamecca sakko ujuja sujuja suwaco casamudu anatimani santus sakko ca subaro ca appakicco ca sallavuka vutti santin triyo ca nipakko ca appagabbo kulesu ananugiddo nacakuddam samacare kinci yena vinyu pare upavadeyum sukino va kemino hontu sabbe satta bhavantu sukitatta ye kecipana bhutati tasava tavarava anavasesa digawa ye mahantawa majjima rasakanukatula dittawa ye va ditta ye cedure wasanti avidure bhutawa sambhave siva sabbe satta bhavantu sukitatta naparo param nikub beta nati manye takatta cinang kanci biaro sana patiga sanya nanya manya sadukka miceya mata yatani yang puttang ayusa eka 𝓟𝓾𝓷𝓷𝓷 Evampi sabbha bhutesu manasambhavaye aparimanang mettanca sappha lokasming manasambhavaye aparimanang uddang adoca tiriyanca asambadam averam asapattang Tittang charang nisinno va sayano va yavatassa vigadamiddo etang satim aditteya brahma metang viharam idamahu tittinca anupagamma silava dassanena sampanno Kami subinneya gedam nahi jatu gapvaseyam punareti ti etena sacca vajjena hoti te hotu sabbada etena sacca vajjena sotti te hotu sabbada Etena sacca vajjena sottite hotu sabbada. By this declaration of the truth, may you all be safe at all times. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, Sir Doris and Sir Chukan, for today's Sunday Pūjā chanting. Today we have with us Brother Ananda Fong to share on the title Listening to Dhamma. So now let us put on our eager ears to hear what he has to share with us today. Over to you, Brother Ananda.
Thank you, DD Terence. Let me share screen. Starting off with a very short puja. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. As has been introduced, today's topic is on listening to Dhamma. Many aspects to this, and even this morning's sharing will not do justice to this particular topic. Starting off, we have to constantly remind ourselves about our wanderings in samsara. Now, most of us, we only observe within our own lives, our relatives, and those around us, that beings are born. If they are fortunate, they're to be born, and we are fortunate enough to grow up, reach adulthood, maybe get married, have children, and later, if we are fortunate, very fortunate, we manage to grow old, and ultimately, all living beings will pass away. This is what we see over the thousands of years of existence or recorded history. But the issue is our wandering in samsara. What is samsara? And in Dhammapada verse 153, the Buddha recalled, through many a birth in samsara. That means it's not one birth, but many, many births. Have I wandered in vain, seeking the builder of this house or life? Repeated birth is indeed suffering. So here the Buddha, underneath the poetry, discovered and remembered that he too, like all of us, have been wandering in the cycle of birth and death. Being born, growing up, growing old, and dying, and the whole process repeating itself over and over and over. So how old are we in samsara? It is uncalculable. We have been around for a long, long time, not just on planet Earth, but in samsara. It means it's going back before planet Earth also. And in Dhammapada verse 414, the Buddha said, he who, having traversed this miry, perilous, and delusive round of existence, round existence, another way of saying it is samsara, has crossed over and reached the other shore, who is meditative, calm, free from doubt, and clinging to nothing, has attained to nibbana. Him do I call a holy man. So clearly, while the rest of us are wandering in samsara, there is an opportunity for those who are meditative, calm, free from doubt, and clinging to nothing, to cross to the other shore in which there is no more being born again and again. There is no more rebirth. When there's no more rebirth, there is no more suffering. As long as you're born, you have to grow old and die, and in the midst of that, we have to encounter suffering. Now, further in the Pūgala Sutta from the Samyutta Nikaya, chapter 15, Sutta number 10, the Buddha talks about our wanderings in samsara. And in this chapter 15, there are many, many suttas talking about this aspect. Here is one. So monks, transmigration or being born again has no known beginning. And of course, many people, Buddhists and non-Buddhists also often ask, because religion is always about the origins. Where did it all come from? The first cause and all this kind of stuff. Questions are very, very common. And here in the series of suttas in chapter Samyutta Nikaya, chapter number 15, many suttas and many other sections of the Nikayas, the Buddha talks about being born again and again. Is there a beginning? And here the Buddha says, monks, transmigration has no known beginning. No first point is found of sentient beings roaming and transmigrating, shrouded by ignorance and fettered by craving. One person roaming and transmigrating for an aeon would amass a heap of bones, provided those bones doesn't crumble and become powder, will amass a heap of bones the size of Mount Vepula. This is obviously a very, very tall and large mountain during the time of the Buddha. Now, if they were gathered together and not lost. So why is that? Transmigration has no known beginning. So if you have been born as some kind of beings, as humans or animals that has what they call bones, not all beings have bones, but those beings have bones, we will have accumulated a large heap, the size of Mount Vepula. Clearly, that is a lot of bones. For that to happen, it is only possible when transmigration has no known beginning. But yet, despite the fact that we are wandering in samsara with repeated birth, we have desires, we have wants. We want something good for our lives, for our loved ones, for everyone that we know. Here, the Buddha in the Ita Sutta, what is welcome or what is desirable? For a noble disciple, house lord, who wishes to have long life, beauty, happiness, fame, and rebirth in heaven. You will recognize this list every New Year, whether it's the Western New Year, Chinese New Year, Indian New Year. Everybody wishes in whatever language they use. They wish to another party and also to themselves. May I have long life, beauty, happiness, fame. And at the end of my life, may I be born in heaven or some other fortunate circumstance. And the Buddha continues in this Ita Sutta. It is not proper that he should pray for long life, beauty, happiness, fame, and rebirth in heaven, but take delight in doing so. So clearly, the Buddha was against the aspect of just merely praying for all these things that we wish to others and wish for ourselves. He should rather follow a way of life that is conducive to long life, beauty, happiness, fame, and rebirth in heaven. By following such a path, he will obtain all these. So the key issue is praying is out of the question, it's useless. We should follow a way of life. That means we have to do something of it, not just merely praying. We have to walk a path, take action so that we can achieve all those things. That means those things, the long life, beauty, happiness, fame, and rebirth and heaven is achievable, but we have to follow a way of life. So that leads to another question we might want to ask. What is Buddhism about? Or the Buddha referred to Buddhism. Of course, today we call it Buddhism, But the Buddha referred to his teachings, his 45 years of teaching, as Dhamma Vinaya, the doctrine and the discipline or the practice. So Buddhism is about benefit, happiness, and welfare for us. So the Buddha, in the exhortation or encouragement to the first 60 enlightened disciples, soon after the Buddha's enlightenment, the Buddha said, "Go monks on tour for the benefit of the common folk, the happiness of the common folk, out of compassion for the world, the benefit, the welfare, the happiness of gods and human beings." So clearly, the Dhamma Vinaya, or in today's language, Buddhism is for our benefit, for our happiness, for our welfare. Not in the aspect of prayer, but follow a way of life. So Buddhism dictates or it recommends things we can do in our life so that we can achieve long life, beauty, happiness, and so on that we desire. And what is this way of life? Well, it has to be rooted in this path to happiness, essentially the Noble Eightfold Path. And on the bottom right, you can see a photograph of a path, what they call upkept garden. And what aspect of the path do you have to take into account? Well, a path brings you, leads you to somewhere. Okay, it doesn't carry you. You have to do the walking. So the path has to be used to bring you from where you are standing, as you can see, to a destination. That destination is nobility or good character. That's why, hence the word noble. So noble path. But what are the factors that you need to do? The things you have to do, to follow a way of life. What are the factors? It is eightfold, not just noble eight path, but noble eightfold, because all aspects within this eightfold path interact with each other, reinforce each other, amplify each other's points. It guides you and it ensures that you do not follow a wrong path. There's a chance that if you view it, if you don't start off with right view or understanding, everything else in the Eightfold Path becomes wrong practice, wrong things to do. So the Noble Eightfold Path tells you what is the right thing to do, when to do it, how to do it, and so on at the right time. So all 8 factors are eightfold. Now, moving on further, now since we know this basic framework, in our 21st century nowadays, we come across issues. Who is wise? Who can we learn from about the Noble Eightfold Path? Or for some other people who are not Buddhist or beginning Buddhists, we're wondering, who are these wise men? And in the Jatila Sutta, talking about method hair ascetics, and the bottom right, we have a photograph of some method hair ascetics. Some of us have certain viewpoints. Oh, method hair ascetics must be those people, wise people should be those who, like the one on the bottom right picture, or those must be wise people. So we should listen to the advice given by these people. And yet other people have other opinions or ideas that, oh, they should be nicely dressed, perhaps all white, white top, white bottom, wear pants, and so on. Or some people might say, oh, they must be bald-headed, they must wear saffron robes. Who are wise? Is it by their dress, by their look? How do we know they are wise? So in this Jatila Sutta, there was an encounter, conversation between King Pasenadi of Kosala. Kosala was a very powerful country in those days. He went up to, King Pasenadi went up to the Buddha, bowed and sat to one side. And soon after that, in the ensuing conversation, a group of these method hair ascetics were walking by, and King Pasenadi stood up, rearranged his robe to present himself properly. He paid respects to this wandering group of method hair ascetics. And later, when he sat down, he asked the Buddha, who among this group of method hair ascetics are enlightened, or perhaps maybe all are enlightened, or none are enlightened? So in this Jatila Sutta, the Buddha gave the advice. It is hard for you to know who is perfected or on the path to perfection. That's important because you do not know these people. You've just come across them. These people just walk by. How would you know? And that draws us to the other issue. Many Buddhists go to temples and viharas. You see monastics giving talks, giving directions as to what to do. Now, how do you practice the Noble Eightfold Path? But you do not know these monastics. You have never met them. Maybe they just flew in. They may be very well qualified, well renowned, practiced for many, many years. That means many vasas, senior monks. How do you know? So the Buddha says, it is hard for you to know who is perfected and on the path to perfection. But the Buddha gave a tip. You can get to know a person's ethics or morality by living with them, but only after a long time. That means you need to get to know them, and to get to know them, whether on stage or backstage, in their casual time, you have to stay with them. So only after a long time, not casually, only when paying attention. That means you are observing the behavior of these what people who you contend that may be very wise. So you need to pay attention to what they are not doing. So not when inattentive, and only by the wise, not by the witless. So clearly you are observing the behavior of these potential spiritual advisors or potentially wise people. At least you are hoping that they are wise. So you have to stay with them. So clearly a monastic that fly in from another country, publicity says, oh, many, many vasas. How do you know that they are wise? Have they perfected on the path? And the Buddha in this Jatila Sutta clearly says that you need to stay with them. So those monastics must stay with you for months and months. But in today's world, that is not practical. That shows the limitation in which for our tools to assess the wisdom of a monastic or potential spiritual teacher in front of us. So another, you can get to know a person's purity by dealing with them. That also requires long time. Notice I stopped the sentence there, ... It talks about dealing with them over a long time, staying with them and so on. So there needs to be interaction and see how they react. You can get to know a person's resilience in times of trouble. Some people, in times of trouble, they take shortcuts, they break the precepts and so on. So how do they react in times of trouble? Trouble to them. You can get to know a person's wisdom by discussion. So you need to talk to them to see whether they are wise or not, whether whatever they say makes sense or not, or are they talking rubbish? Are they encouraging you to kill another living being or what? So this Jatila Sutta is an important yardstick and important limitation for us lay people when wanting to find out who is a potential teacher, who is a good teacher. So clearly, many of the monastics, they pass through the viharas, we attend Dhamma talks. We have no way of knowing whether they are wise or not. So the only thing we can do is we listen to what they say and evaluate accordingly. We cannot stay with them, we cannot live with them, we cannot see how they react on the stage or backstage and so on. So these are the limitations. So you have to take note of this. Now, in the Chanki Sutta from the Majjhima Nikaya, Sutta number 95, this is a very interesting sutta. So the title here says, In Search of Spiritual Guides and Awakening. This is right where we want to talk about this morning. So the Buddha said, Bharavaja, take the case of a monk living supported by a town or village. So a monk living supported means a mendicant or monk, a renunciant who has renounced the world, not working, and goes on pintacara, and the town provides food and maybe lodging, clothing, and so on. So supported by a town and village. So a householder is basically a lay person like us. A householder or their child approaches and scrutinizes them for three kinds of things. Now the key word here is scrutinizes. That means like in the Jatila Sutta, the previous sutta, we're talking about paying attention as to how they behave, what these spiritual guides. It is even more critical if these spiritual guides or monastics claim that they are enlightened, if they claim that. So even more, this scrutiny becomes more stringent. And here the Buddha sets a very, very high bar for those monastics which many of us assume may be enlightened. So we scrutinize them for 3 things. What are these 3 things? Things that arouse greed. And the Pali word I underline is lobha. Many of you will have come across this aspect. So you are watching in their words, this person's words and action. You yourself may not be so spiritually advanced, you cannot read that monk's mind, what is he thinking, and so on. But you can see how the person acts, how the person talks, or what the person talks about, and so on, as advised in the Jatila Sutta, the previous sutta. So you're looking out for things that arouse greed, things that provoke hatred or hate. And the Pali word is dosa. And things that promote delusion. The Pali word is moha. So you're looking out for things in the actions, in the speech that has elements of greed, hatred, and delusion. So when you scrutinize them, you have to try to find out the answers. Are there any in this person's behavior? So further question, does this venerable or monastic have any qualities that arouse greed? Such qualities that were their mind to be overwhelmed by them. That means if their minds have been clouded by greed, they might say that they know, even though they don't know, or that they see, even though they don't see, or that they might encourage others to do what is for their lasting harm and suffering. Now, clearly, in the previous page, the exhortation to the first 60 aras, the Buddha said, the Dhamma is for your lasting happiness, welfare, and so on. And that definitely, you do not expect a monastic to encourage you to do things that is for your lasting harm or suffering. So that is whatever this person is doing. If this person is doing clouded with greed, it's not Dhamma. And notice there are ... So this iteration goes on further to explain aspects of greed and goes on to explain aspects of hatred and delusion. So to know more, please read the Chanki Sutta in full. Now, fast forward. Now, when you scrutinizing them in this way, they see, that means the lay people like us, we see that they are purified of qualities that arouse greed. Obviously, in the sutta earlier, if you see that they are what they call not purified of qualities that arouse greed, we would take their advice with a pinch of salt, if not a tablespoon of salt. That means we consider them. But if we observe them, we scrutinize them, there may be some that have purified of qualities that arouse greed, which means these monastics do not exhibit via action or words anything that has greed in them. And going further, scrutinizing them in this way, we see that they are purified of qualities that provoke hatred. And scrutinizing them in this way, they see that they are purified of qualities that promote delusion. So those monastics, via our scrutiny, we observe that they do not have any greed, hatred, and delusion. So for those that pass this, what I call important screening test or scrutinizing test, what do we do then? And this is the next important phase. So after we have evaluated that, next, the lay people place confidence or faith. The Pali word is saddha in them. We place confidence with them because we have evaluated them. We found out that via action or their speech, after associating them with them for some time, we found out that they do not have greed, hatred, and delusion. Our confidence in their spiritual purity is high. So, which means we have great saddha in them. And for those who wish, in whom we have saddha or confidence, what do? So when faith has the reason, they approach the teacher. So we go near the teacher. Now, earlier we were standing in the background, listening and watching and so on. Now we go near, right? We might want to ask questions, we want to hear teachings from the teacher. So they pay homage, they respect the teacher, or at least a potential teacher. And then the next thing is the teacher will teach. So we actively listen and hear the teachings, which is the topic of this morning's Dhamma sharing. We actively listen, or Didi Terence used the word eager ears. So we actively listen, we pay attention. So there are a number of other suttas that elaborate on this aspect, which the next few pages will talk about. But back to Chanki Sutta. So while we are actively listening, we hear the teachings. What do? We remember the teachings. Not that we accept them, we remember, because in those days, during the Buddha's time, there was not digital recorders, tape recorders, there were no paper. So the only way to remember the teachings was literally to memorize what the teacher said. And then after memorizing, what do? You reflect on their meaning. Means you evaluate. Per advice in the Kalama Sutta and even the earlier portion of this sutta, we talk about does the teaching has any elements of encouraging greed, hatred, and delusion or not, and so on. If they have, then we might want to reject that teaching. But if they do, now we reflect on their meaning, and after consideration, accept them. So we evaluate the teaching. So this is the sieve or Kalama Sutta aspect, or some deeper checking on whether the teaching makes sense, is reasonable or not, whether it is supportive of the welfare of the practitioner and others or not. So we accept them only after consideration. Now, after that this is the what they call the gatekeeper. That means you're checking. You have not practiced anything yet. Then after you have considered all that, then only the enthusiasm springs up. Enthusiasm to do what? To walk the path that the teaching is advising you to do. When you do those things, then you gain certain qualities, hopefully some nobility, like in the Noble Eightfold Path. So then enthusiasm springs up. They make an effort. They weigh up and persevere. Now, as in any practice, beginning practice of anything, the failure rate is very high because you are not an expert in doing those things. You have to put in effort, and you might fail miserably in the beginning, but with practice, what happens? The failure rate drops. The instances of success in the practice increases. But all this require persistence, hence the word persevere. Now, persevering, they directly realize the ultimate truth and see it with penetrating wisdom. This is going towards enlightenment. So these are the various steps we have to go through in scrutinizing or choosing a potential spiritual guide or teacher, whether in the form of monastics or wise lay people. But the key aspect of this morning's sharing is on active listening and hearing the teachings. What other lectures or advice did the Buddha give regarding how we can actively listen? Now, here is a sutta, quite interestingly, on one who understands. Now, in this 𝓢𝓾𝓷𝓷𝓷 sutta from the Anguttara Nikaya, Book of 4, Sutta number 133, a very short sutta, the Buddha says, monks, these four people are found in the world. What for? One who understands immediately, one who understands after detailed explanation, one who needs education, and one who merely learns by rote. Rote means pure memorization. These are the four people found in the world. So you can see in the suttas, the Buddha has encountered many kinds of people. Some people ask the Buddha a question, the Buddha gives a one-line answer, and the person understands immediately, gains enlightenment immediately just after listening to the Buddha. But there are others who understands after detailed explanation. This practitioner needs to ask a lot of questions, go back and practice, and come back again and have tutorials and requests for discussions and so on. And of course, the third one needs education. Wow, this one is even more elaborate. The teacher has to spend a lot of time with this disciple. And the last one, of course, one merely learns by rote. So there are different kinds of disciples. Now, even during the Buddha's time, you have this kind of people, and today, of course, similarly. Now here we go to an interesting story on who is that? The renunciation of Yasa. Now, many of you may remember some stories regarding the session after the Buddha's enlightenment. The Buddha journeyed to Isipatana, the Deer Park, taught the 5 ascetics in the first sermon, the 𝓤𝓾𝓷𝓵 Sutta. Then the second sermon, the Anatta-Lakkhana Sutta. Then later, the Buddha spent the vasa around the Deer Park area, and he walked to a nearby park where he encountered this young man called Yasa. So the story here, this one is from the probably from the Vinaya Pitaka. Now then at the time at Varanasi, or which is a town nearby to Isipatana, there was a delicate young man of good family, Yasa by name, a merchant's son, means a rich man's son. There were 3 palaces for him, one for the winter time, one for the summertime, and one for the rainy season. Now here, like in many other sutras, even the story regarding Prince Siddhartha, you notice Prince Siddhartha, also in a way a prince, has 3 palaces also, the Buddha has described in the sutras. And here clearly says there are only 3 seasons in India, not 4 seasons. There is a winter time, there's a summertime, and the rainy season. And we have just come out of the Vasa, means the rains retreat, and that's where many monas, viharas have been organizing Katina. Okay, Katina only happens after the end of the rain season, indicated by the Pavarana. Now continuing, during the 4 months in the rainy season palace, while a female musical ensemble was entertaining him, he did not descend to the bottom of the palace. Now, clearly, this is a multi-story palace. Okay, he didn't go downstairs. He was always upstairs in the big hall where entertained by female musical entertainment. Then, while the young man Yasa, possessed of and endowed with the 5 strengths of sensual pleasure, was being entertained, he fell asleep first, and his retinue fell asleep afterwards. In a way, quite similar to what happened to Prince Siddhartha. So much of entertainment, he also fell asleep. And when the musicians saw that their what they call intended audience, or one audience of one, fell asleep, they decided, oh, stop performing, and they also sleep where they are. So his retinue fell asleep afterwards. And all night an oil lamp burned. Then the young man Yasa, after waking first, saw his retinue sleeping with a lute in her armpit, another with a small drum on her neck, another with a drum on her chest, another with hair disheveled, that means the hair is all over the place, another dribbling, another muttering. Quite similar to Prince Siddhartha in his early days. So that it seemed that as if there was a cemetery close at hand. Having seen this, the danger became clear to him, and his mind was established in world weariness. He was getting very, weary of all things mundane and the world. Then the young man Masa uttered his exalted utterance. Tribulation indeed, ruination indeed. He was very, very disappointed, disgusted with the ways of the world. Then the young man Masa, having donning his golden slippers, went to the door of his dwelling. Divine beings opened the door, thinking, oh, let there be no obstacle to the going forth of the young man Yasa, from the home to the homeless life. Then the young man Yasa went to the city gate. Divine beings opened the gate, thinking, let there be no obstacle to the going forth of the young man Yasa, from the home to the homeless life. Then the young man Yasa approached the Deer Park at Isipatana. So that's where the Buddha and the 5 ascetics were. There were no 60 arahats yet, only the 5 ascetics and the Buddha at the Deer Park. So then at the time, towards the time of dawn after rising, the fortunate one, or the Buddha, was walking in the open air. The Buddha saw the young man Yasa coming while still far away. And after seeing him and descending from the walkway, he sat down on the prepared seat. Then the young man Yasa, not far from the fortunate one, uttered his exalted utterance. Tribulation indeed, ruination indeed. So obviously Yasa must have been deep in thought and very weary of the world, very disappointed. So then the Buddha said this to the young man Yasa. This Yasa is not tribulation. This is not ruination. Come, Yasa, sit down, and I will teach Dhamma to you. Then the young man Yasa thinking, it seems this is not tribulation. This is not ruination. Joyful, uplifted, after taking off his golden slippers, approached the Buddha. And after approaching and worshipping or paying respect to the Buddha, he sat down on one side. Now to the young man, Yasa, sitting at one side, the Buddha spoke about the gradual teaching. Here I underline and make into larger font, gradual teaching. And this is very common. When the Buddha teaches a lay person, not a monastic, a lay person, people like us, the Buddha will use gradual teaching. And the Pali word is 𝓤𝓾𝓷𝓷𝓷. Now, what does this gradual teaching comprise? It comprises talk about giving, 𝓟𝓾𝓷𝓷. 𝓟𝓾𝓷𝓷 means made up of two words, dana and katang. Katang is talk about or commentary. And dana is giving. Talk about virtue, 𝓟𝓾𝓷𝓷. Talk about heaven, 𝓟𝓾𝓷𝓷. The danger, degradation, defilement of sensual desires, and the advantages of renunciation. So this set comprises the gradual teaching. Then when the Buddha knew that the young man Yasa, so clearly the Buddha was monitoring Yasa's mind, see how his mind was, whether he was still in weariness or distracted or what. Was he paying attention? Was he calm and so on? So the Buddha was reading Yasa's mind. So when the Buddha knew that the young man Yasa had a ready mind, a pliable mind, an open mind, an uplifted mind, a confident mind. Now, an interesting word in the Pali, you will note in English translation, an open mind. Here, the Pali word is called vi-nivarana cittang. Cittang is the mind. Vi-nivarana. Nivarana is hindrance, as many Buddhists know, and there are 5 hindrances. Vi-nivarana means no hindrances anymore in this Yasa's mind. So when this happened, when these qualities were present in Yasa's mind, the Buddha explained to him the Dhamma teaching. The awakened ones have discovered themselves. Dukkhaṃ, samudayam, nirodhaṃ, maggaṃ. Basically, suffering, origin, cessation, and the path. So in summary, it is the 4 noble truths Buddha explained to Yasa. Now, just as it is known that a clean cloth without a stain will take the dye well, just so to the young man Yasa, on that very seat, the dust-free, stainless vision of the Dhamma arose. Vision of the Dhamma. So there is talking about some aspect of understanding, of penetrating, of realization. And the Pali word used commonly in the suttas also is called Dhamma Cakkung Uddapadi. Uddapadi means arise or come about. Dhamma Cakkung, Cakkung is to see, the eye. So the Dhamma Cakkung, the vision of the Dhamma arises. And these are the famous words mentioned in many stories regarding the teaching of other lay people. Yang kinci samudaya dhammang, sabban tang nirodhamang ti. So whatever has the nature of arising, all that has the nature of ceasing. Now here, clearly, the Yasa had some kind of deep realization, But what is this deep realization about? It is characterized by this: whatever has the nature of arising, all that has the nature of ceasing. And that is classified as the vision of the Dhamma. And soon after that, that means Yasa attained the first stage of sainthood, as recorded in the stories. And soon after that, his father came looking for him, and the Buddha taught. The father also gained the first stage of sainthood, and later the mother, and so on. Okay, so the mother also gained the first stage of sainthood. But Yasa, being a rich man, had many friends. He had something like 54 friends, and they came to know about Yasa deciding to renounce the world, and they came to listen to the Buddha, and they too had the vision of the Dhamma arising. Now, clearly, with this teaching of the 54 friends, together with the 5 ascetics, in the first sermon and second sermon, you had the first 60 enlightened disciples. Hence the artistic drawing at the bottom of this page. And the Buddha dispatched the first 60 arahats in different directions to spread the good news. So what is this vision of the Dhamma? Well, we have to go back to the 10 fetters, sangyojana. And what do these 10 fetters do to us? They tie us to the wheel of existence, or the wheel of birth and death, samsara, as I alluded to previously. Now, in this world, there are only 2 kinds of people. We are not talking about whether they are smart or stupid. We are talking about whether they are just mere worldlings or noble ones. And the Pali word for worldling is putujana. So we are basically putujanas. Those who have some degree of enlightenment, the noble ones, are called Aryas. But there are the different kinds of Aryas. Now, going through, those who have become first stream winner, or attained the first stage of enlightenment, or in the Pali word, sotapanna, they have uprooted, got rid of permanently aspect of personality belief, skeptical doubt, and clinging to mere rules and rituals. And this is what happened to Yasa. Yasa attained the first stage of sainthood on the first teaching. He became a Sotapan. And on that, he already decided to renounce the world and become a disciple of the Buddha. Now, continuing on this 10 fetter list, those who have toned down, that means not uprooted, but reduced the energy level of this sensuous craving and ill will, they attain the second stage of enlightenment, or become the second stream winner, or in Pali, Sakadagami. And those who have uprooted sensuous craving and uprooted ill will, they attain the Anagami stage, or they are known as the third stream winner, or third stage of enlightenment. Notice, up to here, we have uprooted only 5 out of the 10. Now, to attain full enlightenment, that means to become an arahat, become a 4th stream winner, you have to uproot craving for fine material existence, craving for immaterial existence. We have to uproot conceit. We have to uproot restlessness. We have to uproot ignorance, avidya. Okay, so when you have uprooted all 10 defilements, the 10 sangyojanas, then you can say that that person has become an arahat. But even having uprooted the first 3, attained the sotapan, that person is still an arya. And one of the important benefits of the arya is that while the person is still practicing to gain, to become an arahat, to uproot the balance defilements, a sotapan, if for some reason cannot become an arahat in the same life, and passes away and is reborn, at most the person has another 7 more lifetimes, which in the infinity of samsara is nothing. And furthermore, a sotapan is not qualified to be born in the lower realms. So the lowest the sotapan can be reborn is as a human being or higher. Okay, cannot be born as an animal or the hell worlds or as hungry ghosts, but at the lowest is as a human or higher as one of the devas. And you note there are many deva realms. Now, this is an interesting sutta. Now, the Buddha talks about 3 patients found in the world. What 3? Now, in some cases, a patient won't recover from an illness, regardless of whether or not they get suitable food or medicines and a capable carrier. So in this 𝓤𝓷𝓲𝓷 Sutta from the Anguttara Nikaya Book of 3, Sutta number 22, the second type of patient is, in some cases, a patient will recover from an illness, regardless of whether or not they get suitable food, medicines, and a capable carrier. So the first iteration is the patient will not recover, okay, whether they get good food, medicine, or what. So the patient will die. The second one is even the patient, although sick, doesn't get good food, medicine, or carer, this patient will recover by themselves. Okay, we have seen that in our lives, even among with ourselves also. Now, in some cases, a patient can recover from an illness, but only, this is the important thing, but only if they get suitable food and medicines and a capable carer, and not if they don't get these things. So the patient requires attention, medicine, good food, and a capable carer. Then only this patient can recover. So this is the analogy given by the Buddha. Now the Buddha turns to the aspect of Dhamma. Now, it's for the sake of the last patient who will recover only if they get suitable food and medicines and a capable carer, that food, medicines, and a carer are prescribed. Now, but also for the sake of this patient, the other patients should be looked after. So the Buddha says, regardless whether the patient recovers or not, we should try our best to look after those patients too. So these are the 3 kinds of patients found in the world. Now, in the same way, these 3 people similar to patients are found in the world. What 3? Some people don't enter the sure path with regards to skillful qualities, regardless of whether or not they get to see a Buddha and to hear the teaching and training that the Buddha proclaims. Now, this is very important statement. Many Buddhists, hope to do a lot of meritorious deeds to be born during the time of a Sama Sambuddha. But then they didn't do, they are fortunate enough, but to bump into or be in a Dhamma talk where the Buddha gives a lecture. But if you read the suttas, you will come across many instances where the Buddha gives Dhamma talks, but the Buddha is actually talking to one or few people in the audience. The rest of the audience, in colloquial terms, is called the Buddha's message went into one ear and came out the other. So it made no difference to them. They did not understand. So this is a statement. Some people don't enter the sure path with regards to skillful qualities, regardless of whether or not they get to see a Sammasambuddha or to hear the teaching and training that this Buddha proclaims. This is an important thing. Just because you're in front of the Buddha doesn't mean you get enlightened, as proven in the many suttas that we have. So the aspect of wanting to be born during the time of the Buddha, well, what kind of people do you want to be? Come across a Buddha is already rare. But yet, in front of this Buddha, you still don't understand what he's talking about. That becomes a problem. What else do you need to do? Now, some people do enter the sure path with regards to skillful qualities, regardless of whether or not they get to see a Buddha and to hear the teaching and training that he proclaims. So these people don't even come across a Buddha, Sammasambuddha, but yet they can practice the Noble Eightfold Path and get enlightened. These people take care of themselves. But I guess the majority of us, some people can enter the sure path with regards to skillful qualities, but only if they get to see a realized one and to hear the teaching and training that he proclaims, and not when they don't get those things. So we need the Buddha. We need training. And of course, earlier on, there are different kinds of people who understand things. So we need to, whether we understand immediately, we need to some tutorial, or we need a lot of studies, or we need to understand the teachings by rote learning or not. But nevertheless, we get a chance to come across the Buddha, and there's a lot of effort to teach and make you understand and advise you on how to practice. Then only we get a chance to enter the sure path. Now, it's for the sake of this last person that teaching the Dhamma is prescribed. That is the one who can enter the sure path with regards to skillful teachings, but only if they get to see a realized one and to hear the teaching and training that he proclaims. But also for the sake of this person, the other person should be taught Dhamma. These are the three people similar to patients found in the world. Now, for the other type of people, the other people should be taught Dhamma. Why? They may not understand everything that the Buddha taught, but certain aspect, the Buddha might happen to mention, oh, you should cultivate loving kindness. And this person is able to latch on that word, and the person starts practicing loving kindness. All the others, the patient, the devotee does not understand what the Buddha is talking about, but latch on to one particular word, for example, loving kindness, and the person starts to practice and makes himself, brings himself to a high level to be able to understand the Buddha's teaching in the future. Now we move on. There was mentioned in the previous slide about the sure path. So enter the sure path with regards to skillful qualities. What do you mean by this? Now, monks, someone with 5 qualities is unable to enter the sure path with regards to skillful qualities, even when listening to the true teaching. So even when the Buddha is teaching you, unable to enter the sure path, even when listening to the Dhamma. What 5? Now, these people disparage the talk, the speaker, or themselves. They listen with scattered mind. Or another translation, one listens to the Dhamma with a scattered mind, or a mind not gathered into one area. That means the person is not concentrating. They apply the mind irrationally. And someone with these 5 qualities is unable to enter the sure path with regards to skillful qualities, even when listening to the true teaching. This is the aspect of listening to the Dhamma. But of course, some people, they go to a talk, they have they are not scrutinizing, but they have something against the talk, the speaker, or they disparage themselves. Okay, so their minds are closed. They're not open-minded. But there are those that listen to talk with a scattered mind who is not concentrating, and they apply the mind irrationally. Now, another translation to this Pali is one attends inappropriately. Now, moving on. Someone with 5 qualities is able to enter the sure path with regards to skillful qualities when listening to the true teaching. What 5? They don't disparage the talk, the speaker, or themselves. They listen with unscattered and unified mind. So just because you listen doesn't mean your mind is attending. So you have to make sure you clear your mind. You have to prepare yourself before you go to a Dhamma talk. You need to listen with unscattered and unified mind. Or another translation, one listens to Dhamma with an unscattered mind, a mind gathered into one. Okay. They apply the mind rationally, or one attends appropriately. Someone with these 5 qualities is able to enter the sure path with regards to skillful qualities when listening to the true teaching. So clearly, the aspect of the listener is very important. How the mind is paying attention, and make sure you are not scattered. Now, this particular sutta is quite interesting. The title is called Without Obstacle. Now, looking at the Pali at the bottom, the sutta name, 𝓤𝓷𝓲𝓷, from Samyutta Nikaya, chapter number 46, sutta number 38. 𝓤𝓷𝓲𝓷 is made up of two words, and nivarana. And most Buddhists would have come across nivara, meaning hindrance, an obstacle. So there are 5 obstacles, but 𝓤𝓷𝓲𝓷 makes it changes the meaning. It means getting rid of this hindrance or obstacles. Hence the English title, Without Obstacles. So monks, sometimes a noble disciple, pays attention, applies the mind, concentrates wholeheartedly, actively listens to the teaching. At such a time, the 5 hindrances, the pancha nivarana, okay, as underlined in the yellow, the 5 hindrances are absent. So when you pay attention, you apply the mind, you concentrate wholeheartedly, you actively listen to the teaching. At that moment, the 5 hindrances are absent, and the 7 awakening factors are fully developed. What are these 7 awakening factors? Satta Bojjhanga is the Pali term. Now, what are the 5 hindrances that are absent? Basically, the 5 hindrances comprise sensual desire, kamacchanda, ill will, vyapada, dullness and drowsiness, tinamida, restlessness and remorse, uddhacca, kukucca, and doubt, or in this case, skeptical doubt, vicikicca. So these are the 5 hindrances that are absent in those who pay attention and so on. These are the 5 hindrances that are absent. And what are the 7 awakening factors that are fully developed? Satta Bojjhanga, the awakening factors of mindfulness, investigation of principles, energy, rapture, tranquility, immersion or samadhi, and equanimity. Okay, so clearly, during that moment, when the person pays attention, listens wholeheartedly, the hindrances are absent, and the 7 awakening factors are fully developed for that time. So these are the 7 awakening factors that are fully developed. So sometimes a noble disciple pays attention, applies the mind, concentrates wholeheartedly, actively listens to the teaching. At such a time, the 5 hindrances are absent and the 7 awakening factors are fully developed. Then only the listener has an opportunity to absorb what the Buddha is teaching and have a very good chance of attaining Arya stages. Now we are back to another story from the Upali Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya Sutta number 56, regarding the Buddha's gradual teaching. 𝓤𝓷𝓲𝓷𝓐. Now this sutta is quite interesting. It involves a householder person called Upali, in fact a very rich man, who was the leader in a village called Nālandā. So during the time of the Buddha, there was a village called Nālandā, and Upali was a rich man who supported many industries. So what happened was, Upali at the time he met the Buddha was not a follower of the Buddha, was not a Buddhist. Upali was a Jain. His teacher was Nicanta Nataputta. And Nicanta Nataputta dispatched Upali, whom he thought Upali understood the Jain teaching very well, and he sent Upali to visit the Buddha with the intention of converting to Buddha to become a disciple of Nicanta Nataputta. So in the ensuing conversation, Upali asked the Buddha some questions, and the Buddha answered it well. And cut the long story short, we come to this particular section of the sutta. For those who want to know more, please read Upali Sutta. So then the Buddha taught the householder Upali step by step. Ano Pubing Katang. A talk on giving, ethical conduct, and heaven. He explained the drawbacks of sensual pleasures, so sordid and corrupt, and the benefit of renunciation. So you notice the parallel between this gradual teaching or step-by-step teaching with the approach the Buddha used for Yasa, the rich man's son. And when he saw that Upali's mind was ready, pliable, rid of hindrances, the Vinivarana Chittang, elated, confident, he explained the special teaching of the Buddhas. Dukkhaṃ, samudayam, nirodhaṃ, maggaṃ. Suffering, its origin, its cessation, and the path. Just as a clean cloth rid of stains would properly absorb dye. In that very seat, the stainless, immaculate vision of the Dhamma arose in Upali. Dhamma Cakung Udapadi. So again, this term comes in. Vision of the Dhamma arose in Upali. Upali, who was, just before he met the Buddha, was a Jain. On the first meeting, in the conversation, he attained the first stage of sainthood, Sotapan. Everything that has a beginning has an end. Yang kincing samudaya dhammang sabbang tang nirodha dhammang ti. Then Upali saw, attained, understood, and fathomed the Dhamma. He went beyond doubt. Why? This is a characteristic of Sotapans. There is absolute confidence in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Got rid of indecision and become self-assured and independent of others regarding the teacher's instructions. So clearly, Upali was a Sotapan. So clearly, this is the last page of this morning's sharing. Clearly, I have indicated to you via various suttas the aspect of how we can listen, and listening can bring enlightenment, at least to the first stage of sainthood, which many of us are striving for. So with that, sabba papasa akaranang kusalasa upasampada sacitta paradapanang etang buddhana sasana. That we should avoid all evil, do good, purify our minds. This is a teaching of the Buddhas. And this is in Dhammapada verse 183, which clearly summarizes the teaching and also is a quick 3-line action for us to practice on a daily basis. Saddhammo cirang titatu, mean the good doctrine long endure. Sabbe satta sukhi hontu, may all beings be happy. Thank you for your attention. Back to you, Didi Terence.
Thank you, Ananda, for today's sharing. Now we have listening attentively to the Dhamma this morning and did the Sunday Pūjā. Now let's dedicate those merits that we accrued so far to all beings, whether they are seen or unseen. Akasata ca bummata devanaga mahiddika punyang tang anumojitva ciram rakkantu lokasasanang ettavata amhehi sampadang punya sampadang sabbe deva sabbe bhuta sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhiya. Idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. And aspirations. Imina punya kammena mame bala samagamo satang samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattiya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you everyone for watching and staying back. For other videos, please go to the links below. Bye bye for now. See you all again next week.